fiber. Again, to be about you. I have something that I'll say too, but definitely want you all to come up, introduce yourselves in that piece. Thank you to our sponsors, Four Peaks, one of my favorite places, and breweries, partnered with us for our Tech Respect Summit, so excited about that. And then thank you to our Postmates sponsor too. There's a QR code over there, and you'll receive a QR code after the event for $20 off a purchase. So if Postmates isn't in your phone, please download that application. They have fun treats. Their tikka masala locally is my favorite, so enjoy your food after the event. And that is going to be used, you can use that for a week. The code is TechRespect25. Again, after this, we'll have our Four Peaks mixer downstairs. We'll have that outside. And so again, we'll have that, bless you, sir. And again, we have recycling bins everywhere. And so for some of the snacks over there, for some of the snacks in here, we're doing our best to make this zero waste. I'm chair of the Tempe Chamber of Commerce Sustainability and Innovation Committee. And we really want to focus in. We have our Tempe Green Forward badge where businesses local here in Tempe can apply for this badge and really showcase their sustainability, what they're doing. So if that's your first time hearing this, which I know for you is not, Corinne there, she works for the Chamber of Commerce and has been instrumental in this, so thank you, Corinne. But if that's just, if it's your first time hearing this, share it with a friend. Forward, you can apply for the badge. There are QR codes on the recycling bins as well, and you can look at the Tempe Chamber website to learn a little bit more about that. So we have some stations. We have our Vet Respect. So it is Veterans Day, post-Veterans Day, actually. And so we have some cards over here. We partnered with Support Our Troops, which is a local nonprofit. And so you can fill out a holiday card to support the vets. We have pens over there, in between sessions, during sessions, grab a pen, fill out a card. It's happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving, all of what you want to put, but we want to bring that over to the troops and we'll be shipping those off to them. So we're definitely respecting the vets, so to speak. They deserve it, and if you are a man or woman of service, thank you for your service. So thank you. Snack respect. We got the snacks over there. You can see there's a theme here. It's all about respect. Very Aretha Franklin of us. But grab a treat, fuel up, and enjoy. Please recycle the wrappers. We took courtesy, and we'll have some snacks over there. There's just some bun cakes, some popcorn, some cookies. Enjoy, fuel up, respect the snacks, respect the planet. That's the piece. So these are my welcome remarks. Welcome. No, really glad to have you all here. I've been with the University of Advancing Technology, if you can believe it, for 11 years. And it's been 11 years of amazingness and just so many different, growth items. UAT is a place where you can come and in the vein of sustainability and innovation, you can start off as a seed and just have your thoughts of what you want your role to be, what you think you're going to do. And eventually, if you attract and get the right sunlight, if you water yourself with innovation and what you need to, you can grow into a tree. And I'll speak confidently that I am a proud tree of UAT. And our goal is to continue to enhance the community that we're in right now, like those branches. And so thank you all for coming. You're part of our branch now, so continue to branch out and bring more folks in. UAT started out as a CAD institute where we confer degrees in technical fields, and we've evolved to the full-fledged university that we are today. So we're really excited for this summit and really very happy. I will say we did have a keynote speaker from our FBI Phoenix division, but they could not make it, and you could probably guess why. The government was shut down, so they had to maintain critical works and just speaking engagements. They canceled all those, but they did send their thank yous, and they did want me to mention that they had this on the schedule and that they were planning to come, but weren't able to make it. But we want to give them a shout out anyway, just because that respect, but also definitely respect for our men and women in the FBI. So that's it. Welcome, folks. I want to welcome up our moderator for our first panel, which is our Green Tech Respect, to introduce everyone else. Ashley Wiseman, 3 Frank Solutions, come on up.
Alrighty, I'm going to invite our panelists up. Come on down, Sarkis and Sophia. Alrighty, guys. Today we are going to Cetera Annick knows too, I am the CEO of Arizona Sustainability Alliance. We take a lot of sustainability initiatives and really make them embedded within the communities in Arizona. Really working to make Arizona more sustainable. So that includes urban forestry initiatives, food tech industry, and I'm fairly new to our organization, so started about a month ago, but have been in the sustainability area for a long time. I also am on the board of AC Clean Tech, so a local nonprofit that hosts community events to keep the Arizona clean tech and climate tech community together. We have a ton of startups that are coming out, and we want them to stay in Arizona and have a great place to find talent and continue to build here, and not just take off immediately for the Bay Area where the funding might be a little bit easier to come by. But happy to have you at any of those events. Can always talk to you about that as well. But I've been in the sustainability and climate space for a long time. I have a PhD from Arizona State in climate risk and adaptation. Now that's becoming a huge topic area for innovation, and so I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
What's up, everyone? I'm Cybersecurity, tech. I've been in sustainability for about 4 or 5 years. Started out in technology, break-fix, MSP. We've been in business for about 14 years in the IT world. It was about around COVID time where we saw a need when everyone was going into getting monitors working from home. I think we all remember that. Trying to find technology, but once that ended, what happened? We started seeing clients come to all our stores trying to say, can we disclose our monitor standard? We started realizing I could go deeper into watching some episodes on, tracking devices, what ends up happening with these devices. So it sparked my interest, and I love the tech since I've been a kid, and we transitioned our company into a recycling company. We're based out of Arizona, we service nationwide. Push a lot of initiatives right now to speak about technology and recycling within technology. Not a lot of people know about that. We have great things in the works with, local cities and sports teams coming up right now just to push the message across. I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to kick it off with the first question here. So, Sarkis, I'm going to start with you. How can technological innovation coexist with sustainability?
So that's going to stem, a lot of that has to do with, okay, there's a right to repair act, that's one thing. Making repairs modular again. So right now, we know technology has advanced. Right back in the day, failed hard drive, cool, replace the hard drive. Failed memory, replace the memory stick. One of the biggest problems we're seeing today is it's not modular anymore. Everything's built onto the board. I know there's a push with Dell and HP specifically right now that they're trying to get back, and I think Dell is actually the one taking the initiative on it to go back to modular because therefore, you guys, you're looking at your laptop right there. Anything died on that laptop, RAM was bad, that laptop is toast. You gotta recycle the whole thing. Is that sustainable? Does that make sense at the end of the day? So that's one of the biggest things.
That's great, and I think just to take off of that, there's so much technology development that there becomes a great opportunity for innovation around that. So the Right to Repair Act, being able to repair your own things and not having it have to be done by the manufacturer is part of that. And then just our increasing tech reliance, I think, in general. We're seeing it a lot right now in corporate sustainability, which is the role I've had over the past couple of years. But we see a tremendous amount of what you guys know. Data centers are increasing quite rapidly. And they have a big impact on the environment as well as the companies do as they grow and as those data centers grow. So we really have to think about this intersection between sustainability and tech growth. There's also a lot of opportunities there to save money and make those types of things really built into the business. So there's a business driver for a lot of sustainability related innovation too, and it's not just, oh, this is the right thing to do. It's like, oh, hey, we're spending a ton of money on energy. Maybe there's an energy alternative we can use that's cheaper, or maybe we can optimize this process so it's taking less energy to run through. So there's a lot of ways to think about sustainability when we're thinking about developing tech or growing new stuff.
Yeah, I want to jump in. You brought that up, like data centers and stuff like that. It's one of our slides talks about, we export so much of this stuff, right? And you talk about data centers. We were just on a call about a data center earlier today, and we're talking about NVIDIA chips that are a year or two old. What's
and not leaving that up to the consumer, right? And keeping in mind that innovation and sustainability really is one and the same if you really think about it, because what is innovation? It's doing things better. How can we create more value for our communities? How can we do less harm, do more good? And how can we bring more value to our customers and to not only our current generation, but future generations? Alrighty, that brings me to my next question. That is, give us some examples of some eco-conscious tech design, eco-conscious tech innovations that we've seen today.
So I'll take that one. You're seeing a lot right now, especially in our industry, in the iPad and iCam. So raise your hands. Anyone understand what iCam is at all? A little bit. Anyone hear about iPads before? All right. So these more so come out the recycling, like you hear electronic recycling. Probably everyone's heard that before. Let's talk about refining. iPad dispositioning to try to get another life cycle. iCam is actually we're touching the product at its birth and then its end of the life cycle, which is really cool. And that's the newest innovation in our industry right now. So we work with these corporations, these Fortune 500 companies, where if they got 400 employees or 1,000 employees and got all these laptops, we house those laptops. Dell and Lenovo will send them directly to us for an iCam provider, and we'll image it. So you're saving on emissions because you have less people working on it. We have newer systems in place right now. A lot of it's pixie booted, where we can image these for the hospital in our facility. We can deploy our facility to their facilities, and then we house all the tools needed for their warranty repairs. And then we touch it at the end of the life cycle, where we tend to work with nonprofits now. That's something we've been pushing heavy is with the corporations, hey, let's talk about what we want in a rev share model. Can we work something out where we can take a lot of these devices and put them back into the community's hands as well? And therefore they're not being wasteful with their technology. And for instance, the technology is getting sold. What ends up happening a lot is 90% of these laptops are being shipped to a freight forwarder. And a freight forwarder is going overseas, and it's not staying here to help grow our youth or adults that are looking to get a job, be able to do resumes like that.
And I spend a lot of time, I think, thinking of the business reasons for sustainability, and there's so many that you came up with that I might just highlight and pick out a little bit, but companies, they want to think, okay, thinking about your computer at the end of life for, a company that needs something running optimally doesn't mean that that computer isn't valuable to other people. So they have a community incentive for wanting to participate in that. They also, I'm just thinking of just trying to explain why that company is doing this other than just, oh, it's the right thing to do. No, they have an incentive to help their, the community in general, to keep those good
that's one thing that we do quite a bit with. In our industry, right, at times, there is an ROI calculator for our clients, where we can go and go for an extra mile for this client are getting percent back off that. The other thing is that you can talk about the landfill, which is like that little, that, you know, the cost of the materials, it might not seem harmful if you put a thinner outside, right? What is it doing? Winter rings, right? And then the seepage, so stuff like that, the cost can add up. And then huge for us is a lot of the milk and getting the use of it. That's about 85% of materials that come to our doors are being dumped into your line. You know, precious metals, even plastics, we're a zero waste facility, even cardboard. We got a deal with waste management, right, where everything needs to get done, so.
Which is no small feat. It sounds like, oh, this is like reasonable, but there's some places where there is not current work recycling. So the fact that you've been able to do that.
We have
is-
no choice.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh,
like
right.
part of our governing body that oversee us, right? We try to follow it, you know, verbatim on our own life at the end of the day. But like Joe can attest, yeah, we love what we do. Like it's fun. You gotta love it. So, you know.
It's a real value add in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And I like how you're speaking to the fact that you put sustainability into every part of your business, for many different reasons. And it's not just an afterthought, it's core of what we do. And I challenge everyone in the room to think about your role in terms of, hey, no matter what role, no matter what industry or job function you may have, how can you use a sustainability mindset to do better at your job? I promise you, no matter what type of role you have or job function, that it can help you bring more value to your role.
I heard someone say something along similar lines last week, like if each person thinks like that, then so better at the
And I think it's also, sustainability is, in business and in tech, it's taking the idea that, not just looking at short-term profit, but looking at long-term consequences and long-term profit that the business can have if you take those sustainability, that sustainability skill set into your work. Alrighty, so now we'll talk about how can universities and colleges and businesses really integrate sustainability early on, in their programs.
I think one, like part of one of our
And then the third way is using AI for climate solutions. We are able to model things more efficiently. We are able to, see where emissions are leaking much more clearly from satellite imagery that we use.
And I think that you spoke to this as well. It's not a matter of if, but when we make these transitions, right? Sustainability to sustain. Um, we have finite resources. It's not a matter of if, but when we're going to make these transitions. So the early adopters are always going to be the organizations that are going to get more value out of these technological transitions. That's an excellent perspective, actually, and it's great to call that out because it's absolutely true. So being an early adopter is really getting the value out of it, but it's not if, it's when. And that's the component I'm always trying to instill in the company. So I tend to go into a company and talk about sustainability and drive it into their work. And this happened at the chemical company. I was brought in as their first full-time sustainability hire, and when I would go to our manufacturing facilities, people would be like, yeah, I had this great idea to reduce our energy usage a couple of years ago, but nobody cared, and now they do care. So it was going back and saying, listen, those ideas were good. Let's bring them back up. Let's check their return on investment on them and see if we can make it work now in a changed economy and a changed world than maybe what has been out.
I couldn't agree more. It's like when you keep talking about it, you say, we didn't want to, we didn't care about it. The employees, it's almost like HR. When you talk about sustainability, no one really cares. They really do at the end of the day. But I think the initiative, like you said, having like an onboard, getting education about it. I mean, that's the key driver in technology. It's like educating people. That's my role as I continue to learn because there's a slide, it's the first slide. There's like 16 minutes, like that. That's from 2020 because why can't we get new numbers? That's what sales do. You can't find new numbers. So the next 12 to 14 months, there's a huge push on this. Working with consulting, we're looking into this, right? We want to get more information, like we're using the satellite imagery, you can get metrics like that. Right in-house our ERP software, we can track emissions based off of computer science. It's pretty cool. Let alone we're only one product. There's a lot of value that you can do.
It's so crucial to be tracking your sustainability metrics every part of your business. So I'm going to finish it off with final thought here is ROI sustainability. We have customer retention, meeting customer demand. We have increasing that bottom line, risk management. We did a project with Coors Light when they said, hey, all of our barley production is in Idaho. We are experiencing drought. How are we going to continue selling our beer, right? Like these are the types of challenges and the risk mitigation that sustainability is really calls for in tech and sustainability. And that really is just the tip of the iceberg of all of the different benefits sustainability has to offer. So I would like to hand it off to our panelists. Do you have any other final words before we talk today?
I think there's so much opportunity in this space to merge, tech interest or innovation with sustainability and just thinking about what area you're interested in and then thinking about how to tie it into sustainability or vice versa. If you have a project you really care about, trying to use an innovative way to help solve that is key. But thank you.
I think we did a good start. I was sitting up there for all here before we started, and I saw everyone doing almost the same thing, kind of something like this. And like we had a different part leaders, and it's one message, one chose, just like everyone picking up after themselves, and everyone small too. I mean, you see a big scale. For me, it's more on the local level. We can make a difference there.
I do. Here's
For the
this
folks
as well.
joining us in the back, we are streaming this on YouTube Live. We do have
I'll
some
make sure
mics
you
set
got
up, so we will have all that going. And so, thumbs up for the audio coming up.
And then it's just presented there. Awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. We're really excited to be here today to talk about a topic that is really meaningful to us and has helped us to excel in our careers. Go to the next one. So on the agenda, we're going to do introductions for everyone here on our brand panel. I'll give you a little background on the Phoenix Tech Group, the meetup group that Sophie and I started. Then Sophie is going to explain what a professional brand is and the brand activity that you all can go through at home. We'll be having Phil and Mason here to talk about the brand activity that they went through last week and their experience with it. Then we're going to go through some next steps on how you can continue to hone your brand. And then we'll do a Q&A at the end. So I'm Kautri. I'm a user experience and user interface designer with 7 years of experience across public sector, healthcare, and higher education. I also have over 6 certifications in UX, AI, leadership, and recently I was sent by my company to the Middle East to help recover a project that was at risk of being terminated. And after being there for 2 weeks, we were able to save the project, which was a $4 million contract for my company. I'll pass it to Sophie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie. I work in government consulting. I've been a data engineer on a USPS contract for about the past 2 years now, specifically focused on their marketing department. So I build custom statistical models for them to analyze their customer base, product base, really anything that can help drive their marketing revenue. So just last year, I helped them generate an additional $10 million in marketing from my customer model that I created for them. I am also a community leader. I help run the Phoenix Tech Group with Kautri. And I also, at my company, run the Women in AI's Leadership Development Program. Pass it over to Phil.
I go by Phil. I'm 17 years old. I'm here at UAT, double majoring in business technology and marketing. I'm also founder and CEO of Business Sound Productions. We're in a really small market testing phase at the moment. I work with Mason here, my creative lead. We've been doing a lot of creative things when it comes to well, we do everything from videos, audio, just a lot of this. Thank you. Just a lot of creative works. It's a creative company, but we're building a digital ecosystem where creators and brands and companies can all collaborate in a collaborative way and make sure everybody shines. Sorry.
Hello, I'm Mason Barlew. I'm 19 years old. I'm a new student to UAT. I'm in tech, cybersecurity. I'm new into tech. I'm new into cybersecurity. I love cybersecurity. It's been a great year so far. I had the opportunity recently to lead my own game jam team. So I like being I like leading. I like organizing tasks. I like planning out things. I don't know. I mean, I'm a little nervous. This is my first time talking, if you can't tell. But back to the point, back to what he was saying with his brand. It's mostly marketing. It's big companies, small companies. It doesn't really matter. It's an ecosystem where we collaborate on marketing on like small and big scales for different clients. But yeah, just to clarify.
Thanks. All right. So to give you a little background before we get into understanding what a professional brand is, I'm going to talk a little bit about the tech group that Sophie and I founded, and then she'll tell you how that links to today's discussion topic. So back in September of 2024, I went through an emerging women leaders program at my company, Mastech. And one of the things that they really talked about was the importance of building your own personal network. At that time, I had worked at the same company for 7 years. So my network fully consisted of other tech workers at my own company. So that was an area that I knew that I really needed to expand on. So I decided to create a meetup group local to the Phoenix area. And when I brought it up to Sophie, she was just as excited as I was about it. So we decided to found the group together, and we called it the Phoenix Tech Group. And we had our first event back in November of 2024. Since then, we've had events across the Phoenix area, and we have over 600 members across meetup.com and LinkedIn.
So one of the events that we do is a workshop on how to demonstrate your brand. And this really came to be, like I said, I developed a leadership development program at my company for the women in AI. And I put together this activity to kind of tie the 6-month program together. I wanted participants to be able to articulate what they stand for, understand how others are perceiving them, and how they can correlate their goals with their strengths. So I want to start off with first talking about what is a professional brand. So to be honest, this was always something that I was intimidated by. I never understood why I would need a brand. I'm not a product, an article of clothing. How can I just be described in a couple of words? But what I really come to realize after some self-reflection and conversations with mentors, what your brand is at the end of the day is what people think about you when you walk away. So when let's say you're stuck in an elevator with your CEO, are you talking about your recent work accomplishments? Or are you just asking about your weekend or about his weekend? So are they getting the impression that you're just kind of a friendly worker? Or are they walking away understanding what technical skills you're good at, skills in general, and what you've accomplished? Same kind of idea goes with students. If you're speaking with your professor, are you talking about what clubs you've started, what certifications you're working on, points that maybe may lead him to refer you to an internship? Or again, are you just kind of asking about his weekend or making jokes? How are people perceiving you? So now I'm going to talk about what the brand activity is. So we're not going to be doing the activity today. We're just going to give you an overview. But this is something that you can do on your own, but we really recommend you do it with either a partner or a group for it to be most effective. And you're really just going to be pulling out what you want to be known for and putting together a brand statement, essentially a elevator pitch that you can craft for different audiences that will really speak to your impact.
So some of the takeaways from the brand activity, you'll build self-awareness and understand how others are perceiving you, and work on how you can present yourself in the right way. You'll strengthen alignment between your academic work, your leadership roles, and your career goals. And you'll really learn how to communicate your achievements clearly and with measurable impact. So, like, for example, in today's day and age, we have a really oversaturated tech market. So those things are very important, being able to add metrics associated with your work and to be able to clearly define exactly what your achievements are.
So this is essentially what the run of the show of the activity is. It breaks down into 4 main steps. and we'll have examples of pretty much each one. But first, you're going to work on describing your brand. And to do that, you want to list out 5 skills, hopefully technical skills, and write about an achievement that you've accomplished recently that you're proud of. The second phase would be the listening ear phase. So this is when you're working with a partner or a group. So one person, you would take turns sharing what you wrote, your skills, and your achievement. And the other person will play the listening ear role. So not only will they be listening, but they should be taking notes and asking clarifying questions. Like, for example, if Katri tells me that she led a redesign for Banner Health's homepage, I may ask her, how much more engagement did that lead to? How many more clicks? If the tech bros were talking about different sustainability initiatives they've done, I may ask, how much ROI has that returned overall for the companies you've partnered with? So the listener will then write a summary of what they heard, and you'll take turns doing that. Then you would come back together as a group in the third stage, and you'll share what you wrote about your partner. And this will really be the stage where you should understand if what you are saying to people reflects what you want to be known for. So like when I first did this activity, I was doing a lot of Power BI work, developing dashboards. And so I was really talking a lot about that in my skills and my technical achievement. And at the time, I really wanted to be a data engineer. And I realized when my partner read back my statement that I had mostly been talking about Power BI, and I hated Power BI. And that's what people were kind of knowing me for. So, final stage will be some follow-on action items you can do to continue to work on your brand, and then just some kind of final thoughts of reflection questions to wrap it up. So, got some examples up here of that first stage on describing your brand. So I wrote mine more from a student's perspective. Katri wrote hers as a corporate worker. So you can see we've got some skills laid out here. And I just wanted to note on this one that technical skills don't only have to be like technical applications, like I'm good at scripting. It can also be problem solving is a really great technical skill to have. So is time management. You know, at some point you may be managing a lot of tickets with different due dates, so that can come into play there. And then you can see in our achievements, so this is where you're gonna really wanna include your impact metrics. So you can see that I analyzed 100,000 data points, where Katri led a redesign that resulted in a 17% increase in conversion rates. So here are some examples of different metrics that you could be including. So from your student, academic performance, awards, certifications, internships, to if you're a worker, what impact have you had as the leader? What change to revenue did your project see? So on and so forth. And when you're thinking of these, you really want to try to be understanding the linkage between like your team's goals and your goals. So this will come into play like if you're sharing your statement with your boss, you probably want to include a metric that he's also going to care about and not just that reflects your own goals. Next. You also want to make sure you're focusing on strong descriptive words. So you want to try to avoid words like good, great, amazing. Those are all nice words, but like if Katri is talking to my boss and she says, Sophie is such a great data engineer, That's so nice of her, but that doesn't really tell him why I'm good at my job and what I do. Where if she framed it in a way of Sophie refactored the legacy code bases, improving application performance by 20%, that's really going to show him the impact that I make on the team. Next. So after the brand activity, this would essentially be your takeaway statement on what's on the right. And you can really kind of see the difference in descriptor words in this. So I go from somebody who is enhancing sustainability awareness to I am driving impact, designing a dashboard, tracking energy usage, to I'm good at collecting survey data, to I've reduced waste by 15%. So it's a pretty big difference here.
So you've written your professional brand statement at this point. Now it's important to tailor it or customize it to different audiences. And that's because different audiences are going to care about different things and remember different things about your statement. So, for example, your organization, your supervisor, your customers are going to care about how your goals have impact their goal achievement. They're going to care about metrics associated with revenue, growth margins, profitability, versus somebody who's a subordinate, a peer, part of your industry network is going to care more about how you can help them in their own achievements. So, for example, if you use a new AI tool and it leads to 20% productivity in your company, 20% increase, they're going to care about that because maybe they can take that and use that in their own company. So now we're going to bring in Phil and Mason. So we ran through this activity with them last week, and we feel like there was a huge change in how they introduced themselves at the beginning to kind of at the end of the activity. So they're just going to talk about their experience, any major takeaways you guys had.
Yeah, the activity was very hands-on. It was a nice controlled environment. So what would happen was she would, sorry, she would tell us, have us introduce ourselves, bios, things like that. And while it started off pretty well, she would kind of give us a timer, right? And she was like, okay, write a new introduction, write a new bio. And what it kind of forced us to do was tailor it to our audience. And usually that happens within that 3 to 5 minutes where you just walk into a room and maybe you're just now meeting everybody in there. And now you have to tailor your introduction and your bio to your audience. So you present yourself in a way that you want your audience to see you as. And so she had us work together, which was the really good thing about it. So, for instance, I'd go over my introduction. He would listen. He would tell me what he got from it, what he took away from it, give me a summary, and vice versa. It was honestly really amazing in the fact that it was hands on, and while we only spoke for about 2 hours, we still got a lot out of it. Um, One of my main takeaways from it was honestly the fact that I wasn't as consistent as I thought I was. While I did have a certain image I felt my brand was, I wasn't really consistent in saying it, and I'm still not. I'm still having trouble with it. But it gave me the insight to know that I am inconsistent and that I don't always say everything that I need to say or display everything about my brand and about myself. For instance, I really didn't tell everybody that I was 17. I didn't tell everybody that I had a brand or a company I was building. I didn't tell everybody that Mason was such an amazing creative lead for me. And so it really just showed me the amount of consistency that I need to display my brand in the way that I need to.
For me, it was kind of eye opening. I didn't really think a brand like was tailored personally to like a person. I thought of it like something for a company. So I didn't really think about my brand at all. Like every now, my brand in my mind is so undefined. So when I have to explain it to people, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to bring up. I'm still thinking to myself what my brand should be because I'm into cyber, but I love media. I love making games. My brand is everywhere right now. So it's really giving me an opportunity to sit back and think about what I actually want to do and how I can market myself for my future.
Yeah, just to add in on that, I remember when I was a student and I was 17, 18, I did not have a brand at all. So you're already ahead of the game on that one. We just really started honing ours in our 20s, I think, through being in corporate America. Um, and, a brand is something that you consistently work on throughout your entire career. So everybody can do this activity, even if you're kind of like, you feel like you're advanced in your career or if you're in the early stages.
Some final items you can do to be working on your brand is redo the brand activity. You're always, your goals and motivations are going to be constantly changing. And so you may not be aware of it, but it's always good to kind of realign on what your strengths are and your goals. You can identify an actionable goal from the activity. So you could take a coding course, public speaking, if you really want to emphasize that you're a continuous learner, for example. Update or create an online presence. Make sure you have a LinkedIn and it's reflecting your brand. Seek out a mentor or sponsor, someone who can guide you and who you can practice your brand statements with. And probably most importantly is to empower others. So once you know how to use these descriptive verbs to elevate your brand, speak about your colleagues in the same way. So if you're meeting with your boss, maybe you can use those descriptive words and hype them up. Teach others how to do the same with themselves. And just be aware it's not bragging at the end of the day. You're sharing your skills and achievements. You shouldn't be scared to sort of brag about yourself. Any questions?
Yeah. Why are y'all so awesome? Or actually, maybe, I should be more specific. Because of YouTube, my happiness has increased by about 7.5%.
There you go. Yes.
Thank you. Tech group that you have started, that I want to, and again, this is also kind of a message for the aspiring students and professionals. I went to was it your first event last year?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I was looking to hire different software engineers, and I met several. However, one stood out, and initially it was just a very good conversation that we had that eventually led into their accomplishments and what she had done, and now she's one of my favorite coworkers. So, thank you.
And she took our brand activity workshop.
Yep.
She defined her brand. Yes. This is also a activity that we host with companies or groups. So if anybody is interested in doing this, we are happy to host it for you. Got our contact info up here.
Any other questions?
I just want to say, when you bring up, even though you feel like you might have it all right now in your branding, and then what you said at the end of that was go back and do it again.
Yeah.
So critical, right? Ever so changing. The landscape is changing. So phenomenal job. I'll be reaching out to you guys. But yeah, phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm curious.
Yeah.
So you've done this activity many times. Have you found any commonalities between people's disconnect on what they thought their brand was versus what it's perceived as? Is there just a common thing that a lot of people have?
I would think the most common thing I see is that people don't realize how amazing they are and how good of work they've done. Usually when the other person reads it back, you're like, wow, I did all that? Like, I'm so cool. So I think people have a hard time kind of bragging about themselves and thinking about it in that aspect.
Yeah, I would also say the biggest transformation we've seen too is just from walking into a room and introducing yourself to someone. We see people, just say the bare minimum. And then after doing this activity, they realize like all of the achievements they could have been talking about. So for example, we did this activity with a women in technology group, and we all went around the room before even introducing the brand activity. And it was very just minimal in terms of what people were saying. Like, hey, I'm Katri, I'm from Phoenix. I love cats, like not even really talking about their brand achievements, but yeah, after doing this activity, like you could be in an elevator with a random person and talk about some of your achievements, or you could be in the cafeteria with your CEO, and instead of saying, hey, how are you, how's your family, you know, really get into the things that you've been working on. So I think that's, you know, big takeaway too. Yeah. Any other questions? Any questions for our students that went through the activity?
Tell us about your brand. About my brand.
Sound Production is a media company that is focusing and envisioning on making a digital ecosystem where small creators, companies, and all brands alike can come collaborate and be seen. We want to put the spotlight on all brands, and that's mainly because the why behind it is I met a kid, right? And he was a really great creative. You know, he had a lot of dreams, he had a lot of aspirations and visions. He wanted to do video, he wanted to do music, he wanted to put himself out there, he wanted to be seen. And the real takeaway from that is while a lot of people have visions, you don't always have the tools to make them seen. And so that kid was me actually. That kid is all the visionaries in the world. That kid is Mason. He wants to make games, right? And so Philly Sound Productions is a company where we want to make sure everybody that wants to be seen can be seen.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you all so much for attending. And yeah, if you want to join the Phoenix Tech Group, we're open to new members. We love getting new members. We have a booth over there, and it has some flyers as well as some stickers, and we're doing a raffle as well. And yeah, also Sophie mentioned if your company would benefit from an activity like this, come and talk to us after.
Oh, we also have a diagram too of the activity, a takeout. If you wanted to do it on your own or do it with a partner at home, you can take that and piece it together. So awesome. Thank you all. Yeah. Nice job. Great job. Yeah. Oh, right.
Is it not plugged in? Make sure. All right, folks. Another shout out for the Phoenix Tech Group. Just want to give you all another clap. Amazing job. I, like Merle, went to their first, it feels like a decade ago, but it was just a year ago. I popped into, it was at Catalyst Ales, and it was just an amazing event. And ever since then, I can't stop talking about the Phoenix Tech Group. So thank you for putting our students through that exercise. Thank you for the folks who are watching on the YouTube Live. Thank you for bearing with us. I know the audio is there now. So it's lightning talk time. So when this pops up, you can pop up, introduce yourself, introduce a moment, and then we'll get set for our cyber respect panel. We also have some snacks over here. We have some drinks. I do want to invite up two of our UAT Foundation directors for our first lightning talk. Please come up, Ken and Tim, pop on up with me. So they're going to kick it off. And they're going to talk a little bit more about the UAT Foundation, what we do. And we do have our Chancellor, Valerie Cimarosa, over here as well. But I wanted to pass it off to you all.
Hello, my name's Ken Booth. I am an electrical engineer and a patent attorney with the law firm. I'm the founding partner of Booth Udall. We are the oldest and largest intellectual property law firm in Tempe. But today, and Tim, why don't you introduce yourself for a second?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tim Watt. My degree is chemical engineering. I worked in biotechnology for a lot of years, and in 2017, I made the career transition, and I am the founder of Keystone Wealth Services, and we help individuals and business owners with complete wealth management solutions.
But today we're here not representing our separate companies, but representing the UAT Foundation. The UAT Foundation was set up to provide a little guidance to UAT, but specifically to provide scholarships and financial aid to students who have financial need, and to promote the socioeconomic mobility of students. We also have funding opportunities for innovative projects. Because of my background in intellectual property, I not only respect innovation and creativity, you might say that I thrive on it. That is why I'm in the field that I'm in. I love creativity, I love innovation. There are so many areas and so many things that people create in and innovate in. There's no end to what's possible. And I became involved with UAT specifically because of their mission and because of the achievements that they have. The students that we have here, UAT really is specialized in innovation and creativity and in advanced technologies. It's not just a general university, general practice university with all these the things that go along with that. They're specialized in advanced technology, and that I appreciate that mission and want to work to encourage that. So that's who we are. For those of you who are not students or who have access to other resources, the UAT Foundation is always looking for donations so that we can provide that assistance to the students and to their creative projects. If you as a company or if you work with employers who might be looking to help support or help encourage that advanced technology that we need so desperately in the valley here, please have them talk to Robert or Valerie or me or Tim, and we will help you learn how you can make those donations to support the next generation of technology advancement in Arizona. Thank you.
Great job. Oh yeah, that's right.
Thank you. There we go. Well done. Well said. UAT Foundation, all things UAT. So second call. Anyone want to pop up here and say anything about UAT, anything about what you do, introduce yourself? Last call before we head into our next panel. Well, we'll get set here. So we have coming up our Cyber Respect panel. So I'll call up Professor Aaron Rodriguez of UAT, Paige Henson, co-founder of Secure Labs, and Dara Gibson, CEO of Cyber Readiness Advisors and CEO and president of AGM for Guard. As long as one over here and over there.
Yeah. Forgot my old lady glasses.
I'll just pass the mic back and forth.
When I got here.
So neat, really.
Now we got Cybersecurity down. For me, it was like a 5-year time to get it open and everything, and up and going. So it took me a year and a half to get forensics, and then after that.
There's no point making cheat sheets if you forget your old lady glasses. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the UAT Cyber Respect Summit. We appreciate you joining us, ladies and gentlemen, and of course our audience and our YouTube audience as well. I'd like to introduce myself. I am the CEO of Cybersecurity Readiness Advisors and the InfraGard Arizona chapter here. And we are a nonprofit organization and we partner with the FBI to increase cyber threat intelligence across all 16 critical infrastructures. And my day job that actually pays the bills, I create partnerships and ecosystems to help ensure that the critical infrastructure stays cyber ready for the next event. My partners in crime up on the panel here today is Aaron Rodriguez, UAT professor of cybersecurity, who sees the big picture of instructing the next generation of cyber leaders, and Paige Hansen, the co-founder of Secure Labs, who facilitates change by creating and trusting relationships. Would you like to say anything more about yourself before we begin our conversation today?
Well, about myself, it's a little different. As far as the university and things like that, that's one of the big things that I wanted to talk about while I'm up here, is our university provides the opportunities to learn, grow while putting a hands-on environment around everything that we do. That was the big goal on why we started that initiative. So as of this point, almost every piece of our curriculum is up to date for 2025. We keep pushing it forward every single opportunity we get. Every time we have an advancement in technology that is available to us, we bring it into the students into that environment and give them as many opportunities to touch and grow and just feel comfortable with the technology, rather than just me reading out of a book and being like, hey, this is what subnetting is. This is what this is, right? We explain it, we show it to them, we let them have fun with it. And then a lot of the projects that we do will be like, okay, create this and see how it goes. And we let them fail over and over again so they can figure out, okay, that system doesn't work with this. This system doesn't feel comfortable with what we're doing right now. And we just want them to grow in that kind of environment. So that's really where we're growing in every part of what we're doing for the school.
Thank you for sharing.
And then I also want to add, both Dara and I are on the board for Women in Cybersecurity, WESIS, the Phoenix affiliate. And so I'd love to talk to you guys later about doing something together, because it's important. And allies, we welcome allies as well, but we go to a lot of the conferences. We're able to be an ally for people that are looking to get into the cybersecurity field, but then also be a resource for people that are more advanced in their career as well. So Dara actually founded the chapter about 5 or 6 years ago, and so I'm just happy to be part of it and work together so closely with her.
And we're doing headshots and happy hour on
yes.
Monday night. So
On
if you
Monday.
need a new headshot, it's only $50. And who doesn't want to be at Enchiladas right down the street for headshots and happy hours? So there's our plug for that.
I love it.
But realistically, we're here to be Debbie Downers and talk about Miss, Mal, and Manny. Okay, so Miss, Mal, and Manny all walked into a bar. No, just kidding. Misinformation, malinformation, and manipulation all are a portion of disinformation. And cyber defense is no longer just understanding about the firewalls and which wires connect and which is secure, but it also talks about falsehoods. So to set the stage before I release the hounds, we're going to talk about what misinformation is. Now, according to ChatGPT and Google Gemini, because they both know everything in the planet, misinformation is quoted as, this is incorrect information or false information that is spread throughout without the intention to deceive. It is a true, honest mistake or factual error. Okay, a little bit of truth. Who has ever done a misinformation once or twice in your life? A little bit like white lies, especially when you have young children at home. It happens. But how about disinformation? Disinformation is the incorrect or false information that is deliberately and intentionally spread to deceive or mislead. This is often the umbrella term for malicious falsehoods. Malinformation is the real, genuine information that is weaponized, shared, or used without context to inflict harm. For instance, the reveal of private data to hurt a person or an organization. And finally, manipulation. This refers to the psychological or technical tactics used to distort data, narratives, or audiences at scale to achieve a specific goal. So let's start with our current landscape. Today, we're seeing deep fakes, the AI-driven phishing strategies, and of course, geopolitical cyber attacks. This is all using manipulation to distort one's real life viewpoints. So, Paige, in 2025, the document notes that cyber threats are moving beyond traditional firewalls and into the realm of falsehoods. From your perspective at Secure Labs, what is the most significant emerging threat that you are seeing between technical compromise and narrative deception, and where might it be blurred?
Well, it is very blurry because I think we can all agree that seeing is no longer believing. When we see a picture, when we see a video, when we hear audio, when somebody is calling us, all of these are avenues right now where they're using deception, and you have to find other ways to authenticate someone. And so it's really challenging for us as consumers because we still have a life to live, but then also as businesses, it's very challenging for them to authenticate their consumers or their members, et cetera. So they're trying to find tools to do that. And I don't know about you, but there's my algorithm is totally geared towards cybersecurity type. I'm seeing some laughs there. And so there's these accounts that do a really good job of saying, am I really riding this camel or no? Am I doing a cartwheel on a bridge or is it AI? And I like those accounts because you're bringing awareness to such a topic that people are just so unsure of right now.
So are you saying that that baby that's saying she likes to go to her auntie's house may not be truthful?
It's truthful in the eyes of the aunt, but yeah, it's dogs are not driving golf carts, etc. Yeah, those things aren't happening.
So Aaron, I just want to talk about the next one is AI doesn't just detect threats, but it creates them even faster. So can you help explain for our audience how automation makes it effortless to generate believable lies and manipulate the audiences to scale?
Absolutely. So I'll give you a perfect example. Recently, we had a student that created a malware analysis tool, more specifically geared for phishing. He created it. He added an AI component to it. That the one little piece of software that they created can go and attack an entire company through a phishing attack for whatever they were looking for. So that is how quickly it can happen. And once they started understanding the psychology of it, we started telling them, okay, send it from very particular departments, send it from very particular people, start putting a little bit of fear into people for not opening that email. So it was a little bit of a build on effect after a while, because we could show them like, look, this is how easy it is to manipulate an entire company. This is how fast we can take over things. So now that we have that kind of information in our back pocket, what else can we do with it, right? So it's very, very quick and easy to change the minds of everybody in an organization. Just think about this. What if we're a rival company and we create an AI system to do nothing but say that your company is saying negative things about us? Now, your company is putting negative publicity about our company, which puts a negative light on you, and we're just going to run with it. That's how quickly we can change the image of an entire company in a couple of days. Running simple scripts, simple things that people can create. Especially, think about it. A student made this in our labs here. What can somebody who has professional equipment, that has years of training and education behind this, what can they do with it? And that's how quickly things can change for us.
And we just spoke about branding, right? Personal brand, but that's also company branding. And if you have that capacity or that capability to destroy a brand within milliseconds, that's how fast we need to be really, thinking about the next generation of protective measures. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So now let's also look at the defenders. What does that narrative language need to look like as a defender for either of you to answer?
Go ahead. Okay. So I think when it comes to defender, it's about understanding what your company currently does, the protocols and the information that we're accepting in and out. One of the big problems that we're facing right now is too many companies are trying to incorporate AI into every aspect of the job. So they want an AI assistant for customer service. They want it for, whatever it is. The problem is the information that's going into that learning model and how is those security measures put in place. I think that right now we're lacking on firewall configurations, specifically targeting prompts for AI systems. Right now, jailbreaking is becoming a very, very, very big problem for us as far as security-wise. So starting to understand, okay, what kind of terminology can mean certain or manipulate words to kind of change the meaning of a phrase or a query without ultimately asking for something completely different. And what does the system do at that point? Our job is to make smarter systems with smarter responses to the queries that are coming through all of our systems. On top of that, managing all of the information that's going to be accepted into the AI system to manage what it can actually output. I think right now that's kind of our biggest thing and hurdle that we're kind of covering at this moment.
Yeah, the guardrails are huge on when we're building these models. And if you think about the data that we're all putting into these models, I mean, how many of you, raise your hand, that have messed around with voice cloning yourself or creating an image? I mean, all of us,
Oh,
I mean, if you've been on
images, yeah,
Canva,
for sure.
I mean, we've all done it. And so now the big question is, where is our data going? And so the guardrails that these companies that are producing these models or making these available have to have some pretty strict guardrails in place to protect our identity, our voice, our image, whatever it is that we've now just put into these models.
For sure, for sure. So our challenges are clear. Let's look at some solutions that we can potentially grow. I mean, that's why we're here training the next generation of defenders. We don't really want to train the next generation of threat actors. So what are some solutions that we can come up with to better target not just our systems, but trust and belief in truth? Now, what I'd like to ask you at this point is, what would you define trust security as? We've talked about mal and mis and dis, right? So now let's change the phrase to trust security. How would you define that for these people that are on YouTube and our audience here today?
Well, this is kind of just more prompty, verify then trust sort of philosophy, where you don't just see something as that started off saying that seeing is no longer believing. Right. So this goes whether it's an employee trying to access a system, a critical system, and so on. So now when I'm thinking of trust security, it's you're verifying and you have multiple ways to verify. And I think a lot of companies, because it's easy, convenience usually wins over security a lot of times, is that you do have to change the protocols in the way people authenticate themselves on the critical systems. Like if it's a super critical system and you get to go with just a username and password with no, let's say, multi-factor authentication or additional authentication, that's going to be a problem for your company and your data. So just making sure there's multiple ways to verify and you have a contingency plan if there's a fail-safe method that wasn't passed.
Absolutely. And from my side of it, I think we're going to be aiming more towards like a zero trust framework establishment across the entire company, making sure there's multiple points of verification, making sure that access to information is very, very strict. I think realistically, when we're starting to talk about that, I think that's where we're going, is just making sure that information is secured and guarded at every level, not just the ones that are at the forefront that we're seeing and we're touching every single day, but applying it across the board to multiple areas to make sure that whatever we have in obviously inside of our files or servers, whatever we have, is protected, verified, and everybody's being safe.
Yeah, we used to say trust and verify, but now I always say don't trust, always verify, right? Because you want to make sure that you're truly going back to is that really a talking baby? Or, again, focus on sometimes the minute to help be expandable, because there are practical steps, be it transparency or explainable AI or more public education like we're doing today. What are additional steps that can build public confidence? We don't want to always rule with fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or the FUD syndrome, right? We want to make sure that we're providing this awareness to people on how they can truly trust what is being seen. We're going to verify, don't get me wrong, but how can we begin to build back some of that trust that my data is being protected by UAT, or that this recording won't be voice transferred into some other manipulation transcript, right? How can we make sure and build some sort of, maybe a little bit of digital trust?
I mean, I actually assume the risk in things like this. I look at the fact that yes, this is being streamed by YouTube. I acknowledge that. So I think that companies, sure, they can have disclaimers and policies. They can get their SOC 2 attestation report. They can get any other security certification. But at the end of the day, us as consumers, if we choose to put our voice out there and our likeliness out there and use these tools, we do have to assume some of that risk, and that's just going to be part of the day. Wah, wah, wah.
Thanks, Debbie Downer.
I know.
Okay, so can you ask me the question one more time so I can answer it properly?
So what type of digital security methods can we put into place that may help public confidence to be ensured that their data is being protected by their organization?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways that we can do this. Now that we have information AI that can actually scrub the internet, we can put in place inside of our companies a way to, okay, look, we've got our policies here. They're in the forefront. Let me explain to you exactly how this works. Let me show you how safe you're going to be. Let me do public speaking events. Let me convince you that what we're doing is the right thing. Once we have that established, then we can start showing them, like, look, I can teach you on our website how you can go searching for that information to verify that we are not releasing it, that nobody's going to have access to it. Everything about what you give us is going to be private, secure, and only touchable by you. That's the only way I think we could actually move forward with that.
Mhm.
You just have to create almost a community with these people now. It's more like nowadays, it's not, you're not going to listen because I say you are secure now. You want, everybody's going to ask how, why, what am I doing? What are you doing different from company X, Y, and Z? So that's kind of where we have to put our foot down and be like, this is why, how we are different. This is how we are going to create a future pathway for us and for you.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, a business wants to put enough layers between their companies or their customers' data and the fraudsters that it almost becomes unusable, or okay, fine, you got this token or you got the MFA code, but it almost becomes unusual because they have so many layers or hoops or authentication. So you can think of that in the back end too, because everything can be broken essentially.
And weaponized.
I mean,
yeah.
with enough persistence.
Mhm.
So what do we do as a business to put enough between our customers' data so it's just not out there and usable, and then now it's not as valuable?
So you made a very good point, both of you. You both said it was the defense in depth, building those additional layers. So we want to help people understand that, or maybe there is. I'm going to preface, maybe there is an or. Is there truth to that defense in depth, or is there a shiny object that will do it all for us today?
As of right now, I do not believe that there is a shiny object at the end of the tunnel that's going to fix everything. At the end of the day, we have different belief systems, we have different models of security, we have different requirements depending on types of information. So at the end of the day, there is not one pathway for everybody. Everybody has to build it based on what you are currently doing, what systems you have available, things like that. So everything pushing forward is going to strictly be based off that one thing. What do you need? What is the requirements for your operations?
So are there governmental requirements? Are there mandates? Are there security protocols, data privacy protocols? Are we waiting on federal government to open, or are we kind of fending for ourselves?
I think some industries are fending for themselves, but if you're in a highly regulated industry like the financial industry, banks have very strict regulations. Healthcare has HIPAA, because our information is safe at a doctor's office. I say that in jest. So though there are highly regulated industries, but at the end of the day, you can be super highly regulated, but if there is not the fee structure, the fines, the enforcement on the other end, then you're not going to get people to take it seriously. And sadly, we all have data breach fatigue, and our information is out there, but it's what do we do now, and what are the steps that we can put in place? Did the companies that breached our information provide additional services for us to monitor or proactively have identity theft protection service? Those are the sort of things now we have to look at, because if our information has been compromised, we need to put those layers in.
So again, not only defense in depth, but utilization in depth. Okay, cool. So our challenges are clear, and we need to make sure that we are understanding the social layer of protection versus the perimeter of business extensive bit perimeters. For all of those who are in the audience today, or future listeners, or cyber professionals, what does it mean for these professionals to be professionals and fluent in human manipulation just as much as code manipulation?
Thank you. Okay, so you have to understand the social aspect of everything. When we start looking at different types of attacks, they aren't direct anymore. Now they're dry phone calls, they're phishing emails, smishing, vishing, anything around these parts where it's like,
oh, I hate that squishing verb.
I hate you. I'm sure everyone in here in your inbox right now you have a UPS package that they need some information from you for. So everybody has one of those right now.
Or my fines from ADOT that I didn't pay.
Exactly.
The toll roads.
PayPal.
Yeah.
PayPal's a big one. I owe them money for some.
Enrolling your benefits.
There we go. Enrolling
That's
benefits.
a big one right now from November 1st.
But exactly. All of those things are designed to spark something in your brain. They all trigger a reaction from every single person because we understand the responsibility behind those things. So someone spent our money. You're like, whoa. We got to double check this, right? So first things first is to teach people what it might come through. That would be the first thing. The next thing would be to make sure that we have systems put in place to catch as much of it as humanly possible. And then the last part of it is to make sure that they are trained adequately. One of the main problems and the largest thing that we see in industry is the human error aspect of everything that we do. Did they understand the concept? Why'd you click on that? And they're like, well, it looked real. That looked real to you? You're like that phishing email that says, from username G111467@yahoo.com. You thought that was appropriate? And no, I didn't look. But these are the things that if we can teach people just to look very, very closely at just who sent the email, immediately removes the need to click on something. So
taking a pause.
Taking a pause.
And just a deep breath. So let's all do it. Let's all just take a pause. Take a big deep breath. We just stopped 1 trillion threats. No, just kidding. We did, though.
Citation for that statement?
What?
Can I have the citation for that statement?
Attestation. Maybe that was manipulation of data. But we want to understand that, is there that human layer that we can help protect?
Absolutely. So okay, I promise you this is going to land real well. Okay, you're going to come up on the holiday season. You're going to be around friends and family, probably older adults in your life. I'll be like, oh my gosh, did you guys see that text message the other day about this fraud? I'm like coolly, I say this. I think I'm pretty cool coming in talking about this thing, but making it normal to talk about scams and the different threats that are out there. Not that they're like a lecture from Professor Paige Hansen, but really just to make it so we're talking about it. And I will tell you, I have actually sat around the dinner table one time walking people through their privacy settings for Facebook, because I have a lot of older adults in my circle that I was doing a family event for, and I was gathering all this information, kind of like a Jeopardy. Do you know how much information I got from their Facebook account? Because it was just public and there and everything. So after that, the fun game, we all sat and we went through our privacy settings. And so
we're all going to Paige's house for Christmas.
I know. So, incorporate that. Just one tip, don't be a total buzzkill and do the whole night, but, do one tip and just make them that much safer and that much more aware, because you're sitting here and hearing the information. You're part of this community. It's part of all of our responsibility to talk about it and keep cybersecurity, cyber safety, digital safety top of mind.
So more than just the month of October.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the things that we do here. One of our entry classes for just about every program here is NTS 103, which is going over personal security. That is one of, by week 5, they're already doing OSINT searches into themselves, going through their social media, going through what is available for everybody on the internet, so they can identify what they need to start removing about themselves, how to clear out that stockpile of information that they just willingly gave the entire planet. So we start teaching that really, really early here. And that one class, the benefit of it is not for cyber or networking or anything like that. That is available to everybody in the university who just starts off. You just get to start learning about this stuff right off the bat. So it's one of those things that we really, really want everybody to have an understanding of every aspect of what they're doing in their day-to-day activities. So
cool. That's a great resource for everybody to have. So and this also brings up to the fact that not only is just your cyber students, but all of your students show the increasing connectivity of the world around us. It's talking about the connectivity of, digital versus real life. And, those touchy-feely, the IoT devices that are being, utilized. So When a fake GPS signal or tampered medical device is categorized as malinformation with real-world impact, what new ethical and accountable standards must ethical hacking adopt?
Who made these questions?
I told you, ChatGPT did it this morning.
Okay.
No, this is a good
Because,
question.
Okay,
no,
so-
here's the truth. I'm going to be honest here. I was really busy and I had to totally rely on my outside resources, my tools that were useful to me. Yeah, right. So I'll repeat the question because it really didn't make sense when I read it out loud the first time.
Okay.
So when a fake GPS signal or tampered medical device is categorized as malinformation, so there's malicious information being put out towards these things, all the cars crash at one time, all the biomedical devices fail, and what are some ethical hacking standards that we need to start sharing?
Well, I think if at that point we really need to start sharing more information, having a more broad platform for that information to be shared across others within that same industry. Once we can start sharing what's going on more fluidly, I think they would be able to develop those ways to stop those threats from happening and coming through and kind of persisting in that environment. Wow, this is a big one. I mean, honestly, if I found a device like that, we need to start centralizing more of the information, filtering it out as much as possible to see if we can find any other devices. Immediately, I would be going through to figure out how did they figure this out. So if we were going to talk about pen testers, we have to start providing this equipment to them immediately and having them run it through its paces. I want you to basically tear this to its bones, and I don't even know if I want it to be like a remnant of what it used to be. If you can turn this into something that can still access information, I want you to go as far as you can. And I think realistically for stuff like that, that might be, maybe adding some AI on top of that to be like, okay, you come up with ways to do this. You'd have to build your own standalone stuff to do that, but obviously it's a possibility.
And see, I'm looking at that as the risk management side of the house or the insurance side of the house as a catastrophic event. If literally every single GPS made all the cars crash at one time, all the insurance companies will die because they can't afford to replace every single car, every single GPS system, all the bodily injuries that would occur from this event, and of course then all the data that's extracted by the release of the GPS. So that's a lot of manipulation and malinformation that would cause those type of catastrophic events.
Well, a real world scenario would be a maps example.
Mhm.
Have you guys ever put in an address and then it takes you this weird way because it's the eco-friendly way? And when you did the update, it automatically put you on, oh, you're going to do the eco-friendly way, which, hey, Robert, I love you on that sustainability, but no, get me from A to B the fastest. Thank you. But that would be an example where they are routing people different ways to, whether it's to manipulate the traffic, and so maybe there isn't as much of a backup and so on. And so that's just something that's actually happening every day in our lives if we're using maps.
Fair. So that brings us to our 30 minutes. And we opened a can of worms about misinformation, malinformation, manipulation, and of course, disinformation. What I want you guys to truly understand is Aaron Rodriguez here is building the next generation by truly understanding the trust capabilities that need to come into play. And he's sharing this continuous learning with our students moving forward. Paige, you're building those trust and those relationships in your ecosystem as well to secure not only labs, but our future moving forward. So thank you both for joining this conversation today. Thank you, audience, for participation. And thank you for having us be here today. We appreciate it.
Well, I'm scared. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We absolutely love cyber here. Well done, Paige. Well done, Professor, and well done, Dara. Our next panel is a very hot topic. We have IT and AI. So we're going to discuss IT and AI. I'll pass this mic over to you all to share for our YouTube Live group.
All right.
And I will be moderating this. And I'm excited because I have a lot of questions about AI. I have a lot of things in store, but I first want to introduce our panelists here. We have Ryan Groover, who is the president of AFCOM, which is a group in the Valley, the Phoenix chapter for data professionals. So welcome, Ryan. We have our provost, Dr. David Bowman, provost of University of Advancing Technology and chief academic officer. And then we have Professor Tony Hinton, who is a professor of both computer science and artificial intelligence, has worked at many Fortune 500 companies and has really done a lot of things in the AI space. I say all that to say we have a good group here that can answer a lot of our questions. So one of the first questions that I have that's on my docket, it focuses in on AI and its use as far as the responsibility. So in today's age for you, I'll start with you, Ryan.
Yeah.
How do you define responsible AI in today's rapidly changing tech environment?
All right, for me, rapid responsibility of the AI, it's really, for me, it's using it and not putting in, any PII, EPHI, putting in any trade secrets. It's using it as a tool to help me, but also make sure that I keep those boundaries in place, that I'm not, misusing it and maybe putting in a little too much information, or using it to maybe do anything malicious in my own environment. So I'd say, because it could be used for that. So that's my opinion on that one.
Cool.
I think there's two ways to think about it, from the user side and then from the developer side.
Okay.
Like from the developer side, I think ethical use should generally conform to those frameworks that are evolving between U.S. practice and the commercial bits and EU's guidance. And a lot of that deals with ensuring that the use of data is disclosed, that there's efforts made to not have demographic oddities, that there's transparency involved, and in situations that especially would involve minors, that the application is mindful of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think on the user side, it's a little bit of a lot of what Ryan said. Don't use it maliciously, but even innocuously. I mean, ensuring that you are being transparent about what's AI and what's not AI. And I think we're seeing this kind of evolving model where, people are using AI responsibly by using it for early drafts of the technology, but making sure their own thoughts, they're creating, like, you think of a Gen AI, music, art, words, things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, using an AI to go ahead and get started, but then it's you that finalizes it up. I think we're seeing that being more and more the conversation, where it's workflow, but the final piece and shine is you.
Excellent points. I'd like to add that it helps everybody when you use it ethically. For example, if you show, here's the data that was sourced, it's transparent, it comes from an ethical place, that not only helps you, but it helps your company, and it helps your company long term, because right now nothing may happen if you grab data from just wherever without giving transparency to the sources, which creators created the data and what the licenses are. But it helps long term. You might build this beautiful company like Udio did, a great music generation company, but now all their customers are upset with them because they created these songs. They pay them a ton of money, and they said, well, sorry, you cannot download your own songs that you created here. So whatever business that you built around AI, it's not happening anymore because we got sued because we did not ethically grab our music data from and be transparent about in the beginning. So it'll catch up to you.
And in that same vein, let's stick with this, and each of you kind of touched on it. AI do's and don'ts. Use it for this, don't use it for that. What's your take? How should we use it in any use case? And give me some scenarios of, hey, don't do this.
Avoid world domination. I think, any time that you can use AI to clarify large data patterns is a good use of it.
Yeah.
I think any time that it can get you started on a new path, it's great. Like, I'm really intrigued by the Vibe approach to programming, not as a way to finally software engineer something, but as a way for people who might not be code proficient to first draft it. I think that's a great place to start. I'll stop talking, let Ryan throw some stuff in.
I mean, I'll say personally, my use of AI is pretty much as a secretary. In the day job, I don't get a budget for a secretary, so it's great for transcribing things. It's great for taking meeting minutes, maybe the occasional funny image. But again, the don'ts. Again, I avoid anything malicious, anything that has confidential data that especially into a public LLM. If you're not a private LLM and you do your own stuff with that, that's a whole nother matter. But again, the don'ts, I'd also say don't trust it implicitly. There, go verify. So like, when I was a student here, it's like, look at Wikipedia, but follow the links in Wikipedia. Don't cite Wikipedia. So definitely that's a big one. Because I'll say simple example. So with my AFCOM chapter, I do events, and I'll have it actually output some text for me to go on LinkedIn just to make my life a little bit easier. But it'll like make the day of the week wrong. It'll be like, instead of Thursday, it's like Wednesday. It's like, no, I gotta go. So I have to go verify that. So again, it's that whole verify model. So
we'll give it back to Tony.
We all know the common sense, like use it ethically. For medical, you want to be researching and trying to find new cures, new medicines. You don't want to be trying to create new bioweapons and diseases with it. So that's like no brainer. And but let me do a quick example, quick analogy. If you ever order pizza, who hears it first? It's your dog. Your dog hears it first because your dog can hear things we can't hear. Well, AI thinks differently than we do, and it can think thoughts and at a speed that we can never think. So use it for that. What thoughts can, not a repeat of human thoughts, but what have we been waiting for? Thoughts that it can think that we can't, and get his perspective on things that maybe you thought were unsolvable.
Cool. And in that same vein, when it comes to AI and the ethical use of it, it kind of starts with the framework behind it, starting early and being intentional. As far as, developers today, what should they be doing? How should they balance innovation and transparency when we're building some of these early AI systems? How can we incorporate that early on?
Well, if you're building your own LLM, it's being really mindful of the data that goes in.
Yeah.
And, I think we're seeing less and less just internet scraping. I'm really intrigued by what Adobe is trying to do, where they are overtly training their next generation models with artists they've contracted with and creators. And so, they're employees, they've created it, and it's good to go. Whether that produces the same kind of quality work that they're getting from prior scrapings, hard to say. But I think as a developer, that's a great example of ways to start. And I think also if you're on the development side of it, you've got to be really aware that skewed data in is going to produce, skewed results, and you've got to make sure the training has, good representation, in the same way like you did any kind of statistical study in your own, that, as a human, you want to make sure that the data sets are something that, replicate across demographics and geographies and things like that. And so, that's some of the things I would do if I was creating an LLM.
Yeah.
I was going to say, really honestly, just ditto to that. I know some friends in the industry. So, one of the main tools we use in the data center is called a DSIM, or Data Center Infrastructure Management. And I've got some friends who are working on AI DSIM right now. And right now I'm helping advise them on what data sets they should pull in to make sure that it's very useful. Because, could I do something similar by just asking ChatGPT? Sure. But, first off, I don't want my data up there. And second off, it's because it's, again, script the entire internet. It's not going to produce the best answer. Right. So again, I would echo that for developers is, targeted use cases, targeted data sets. So then, you're building something that's truly valuable and something hopefully truly you can make, obviously money off of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's either open source projects or they're closed source or proprietary. Either way, they should say where they got the data from. So the open source projects will say where they got the data from, but what also the data is, anybody can review it. Closed source, where they got the data from, but people won't be able to, of course, view the data. So there's a separation there. And what things are moving to is this question might become a moot point, because what a lot of companies now are doing is not so much scraping, because the internet's been read, it's been done. Everything's been vacuumed up. As now the next generations of models, what they're doing is they're creating artificial data from existing models. So then it really doesn't become that much of a question unless you're grabbing the data from someone else's model and not your own.
Yeah, and good point with the models. And, I think the big elephant in the room is AI. We talked about this on our UAT Tech Tangents podcast, small plug for that. But the proliferation of AI, it's everywhere. But AI has its own demands. AI needs data centers. AI needs water. There's so many things that AI needs in order to thrive. And looking at that, speaking to that piece, but also how cities can prepare for what we're going to see as more data centers. I'd like to give that first to Ryan.
Oh goodness, that's a can of worms. All right, so let's break that down. So yes, AI takes a lot of power, but let's also be very frank about that. So AI learning takes a lot of power. AI inference does not. So you got to be a little cautious of that, because right now we are in a very heavy. We're about 80% learning right now, 20% inference. So, and if you don't know, the learning is when you build the model, inference is when you use the model. So when I talk to ChatGPT, that's the inference side of it. That's just sending little queries to it, and it posts it back to me. We're going to be seeing a model flip on its head probably in the next 3 to 5 years, what we're all expecting in the industry. So hence why, getting ready for that. What we're all talking about is micro data centers everywhere, probably 20, 40 megawatt. So within 50 miles of population center. So you're probably going to start seeing that, obviously the valley is saturated with data centers. I know of places where we could put inference pretty easily. But let's say Tucson, for example, they do not. So they're probably going to see someone pop in a couple little data centers around the edge of town. Now, preparing for that. Now, the water thing, because you brought up water. Now, this is what we call an ASHRAE 2 Bravo zone. So it's hot, dry. No one dares in this environment put in a open loop system. That is just, you're asking for trouble. Look at Project Blue in Tucson, what happened with them until they re-architected their design and brought it all back around. So the water thing we've pretty much got solved. It's called closed loop chiller. Now, the energy thing we can't get around for probably the next 5 to 10 years. Right now, it's the developer should be working very carefully with your utilities, making sure that we're not oversubscribing. And keep in mind, when these data centers say, I'm going to use a gigawatt, well, they're not using a gigawatt day one. They've got to ramp up. But the overall savior at the end of the day is, if you're not aware of this, nuclear small modular reactor. 70, 90 megawatt modules parallel together. That's honestly going to be our savior of data centers, is what we're all looking at, and we'll be turning into assets on the grid. So yeah, that was a lot.
Is it Amazon or Microsoft that's in the process of building their own nuclear reactor?
Microsoft bought 3 Mile Island. Equinix bought one in Germany. I want to say maybe it's Amazon.
Yeah, they're building their own.
Yep.
It's and that's the thing. Like these small modular reactors. They figured it out probably about 10 years ago. That's when I first started seeing the designs and the conversation about it. But there wasn't a huge need, and now the need is kicking over in a giant way. Something you can probably expect is both power generation and data centers showing up in places where you don't have the NIMBY effect. And that's already creeping up, in large municipalities where you've got, like great data center is going to generate, have a $2.5 billion economic impact, but people are like, but I don't want to live next to a data center, for whatever sets of reasons. And so I know the Arizona Tech Council and the legislature is very actively involved right now in trying to solve that for Arizona. Like, where can you put a data center and these small powered things that aren't near population centers? And the first one that's actually being looked at actively is near Florence Prison. Is that it's like no one wants to live near a prison anyway, and so put a data center there, and the prisoners don't get to vote. But there's conversations of things like that, even to the level of putting a data center near Palo Verde, because again, people don't want to live near a nuclear power plant. But you can put a data center there. It's got an infrastructure set up. You can tie into the grid easily enough. And so I think it's a model that was tested successfully, I believe, either in Western Pennsylvania or Western Virginia. And you're beginning to see the country look at that as a way to answer that piece of where to put data centers. But I will say you can't predict everything with tech, but I do think we're going to see in the next 25 years a number of new nuclear reactors go live. It's just the posture of the mood is changing, and I'm even seeing more environmental groups acknowledging that the overall environmental impact of nuclear is less. Now, the one last piece that I would say is at the same time, depending on who, if you listen to the dean of research at U of A, we are 5 to 10 years out from the first viable fusion reactors. And saying that's viable means it works in a test environment, kind of the way quantum computers are right now. And but the thing is you talk about that 25-year window, and for as much concern as we've got over power, 25 years from now, if the fusion thing makes its progress as it's looking like it, then it's a whole new thing. There was a research group in Japan last week released some work they'd done on solving some key coil issues with it. And so as you track tech trends on fusion power, you're beginning to see more successes as opposed to just starry-eyed, in the future we'll be back to the future. So there you go. Sorry.
I'm not really worried about this. Crypto takes more power resources than AI. And that's not supposed to flip until 2026 at the earliest. So they found enough power for crypto. They can find enough power for AI or reduce crypto or whatever. And then like Professor Bowman was talking about, Dr. Bowman was talking about, the breakthroughs that will be coming. For example, who says that they're going to take this much power? They may take a lot less power. The chips are always getting, faster, but doing that with less power. And that's been the trend. So there could be breakthroughs on chips that require way less power, and it may not even be an issue.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about AI. We could talk about AI for the all the 30 minutes here, but specifically for you, Ryan, I want you to touch on IT. What are some IT trends that you're seeing? There's repatriation, there's data governance, there's a lot of different things happening here in the IT realm. What are you seeing?
Oh my goodness. I mean, IT, I'll say let's start with the repatriation things that you brought that up. Something we've been tracking in the AFCOM circles for a long time. So if y'all remember, let's go back about a decade, and someone came up with this term, the cloud, and we all look in the sky like, ooh, the cloud. Obviously the big three, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, obviously make a giant data centers, make a lot of money doing the whole cloud thing, but we've since discovered the cloud is not perfect for everything. And we've been tracking, the AFCOM circles for about the last half decade, repatriation between 60 to 80%. And I'll say that data comes from us data center managers on the ground watching the trends. And this is reported year after year. Where last year was 80%. A lot of us are reporting either return to on-prem, which unfortunately what that generally means is return to co-location because you've already sold your data center, or you're going with really to me, truly the answer is hybrid. Use the cloud where it's best, but use on-prem where it's best as well, especially data sovereignty, data governance. I watch that very carefully and the trends around repatriation. I mean, we see what happens in the EU. We got California. Who knows what's next? I've heard, I got a friend in Illinois who's been talking about there are been actually data center deals pulled because there's a new law on biometric data that even if the owner operator does not know that biometric data exists and it gets breached, that data center could be held liable. So we're just going, nope. So they're actually pulling out and going into Wisconsin at this point. But repatriation is a huge one. Data governance, that one's been talked about forever. I think it's just kind of an ever evolving thing as we kind of figure out, and I guess also as the laws change, that's utterly massive. The speeds. The day job, I do support low voltage. So for those of you who don't know, low voltage, communications cabling, fiber, lots and lots of fiber. We're seeing connectors that are like wafer thin that can do 3.2 terabits. That blows my mind. I mean, going from your gigabit jack on the wall to terabit connectors. The sheer amount of fiber we need to connect everything. And this is not just data center. This is like your office buildings and all that. that's just massive where we're going with all that. We talked about the power usage thing. It's just going up and up and up. I'll say though, getting into the point about the power. So yeah, we are seeing that obviously with, I've seen waves through my career where it's like, okay, we go power intensive, then it drops. Power intensive. We're kind of, to me, in that kind of power intensive cycle, it starts to talk about the NVIDIA, the H200s, the 300s, et cetera. We're kind of doing this. we're going to peak and we'll start going down eventually. So see that, but I mean, really just IT that connected everything. I mean, shoot, I've got probably 30, 40 connected devices in my house alone. Not to mention where I work, we've got hundreds of thousands of connected things. That's just everything's got a connection anymore. And which of course that means for, I know that prior cyber panel, that's a lot more things you got to defend at the end of the day. That's a lot more things I have to connect with low voltage. So it's just so much IT going on right now. And then I will, the other elephant for me is, of course, what connecting everything, the money, the tariffs, it hurts right now. It really hurts to buy things right now. So my budgets have been blown out of the water. So and I know a lot of my friends in the industry are experiencing the exact same thing.
And Italian pasta is going to go away soon.
Well, good thing I make my own.
There we go. Exactly. Yeah. There's 107% tariff going in on Italian-made pasta. So Italy's saying no thanks. When I think about AI right now, it's certainly, since 22-23 when chat came out, it has been the tech topic. And the first wave was, what is it? What I kind of feel we are right now is this, like, okay, we're beginning to know what is it. People know it, but what you have is a gap between people who know it, maybe unexcited, against know what it actually can do and what is useful. And what I'm seeing is on the rise, and I saw when we did our advisory sessions this year, nearly every advisory group we spoke to is working AI into the workflow, especially in spaces where there's Gen AI opportunities, writing, music, things like that. I think that in the next year is going to solidify. And we had this really great conversation with students about a month or so ago, and asking like this sort of worried question of, well, okay, so on the one hand, I don't want to leave school being so good at AI, they don't have my core skills. How are you going to prevent that? And then there was a secondary piece of, you're not going to replace professors with AI. And it was pretty easy to talk through. The reality is that's not anywhere close. We're just, anybody who's tried to use a chat bot, even a good AI one, knows there's a big difference between that and another human being who's a mentor. But I think there's a parallel with that and a lot of the other images we're seeing with AI. Like, if you look at any number of the IBM ads, and they kind of show, people walking through, shiny, clean, white-collared jobs, and AI is handling all their stuff, and their productivity is all there, and all this stuff's going on. That's a great vision of what they hope consulting services are going to create. The reality on the ground is, I was in this tech council meeting last week, and we asked all the membership, how many of you are using AI that way? Not a single hand went up. And we're talking Uber, we're talking Intel. They're like, no, it's not there yet. That's years away. And so I think one of the things to be aware of in general with AI right now is differentiating between what actually people are using and are likely needed to skill up and be productive in the next 12 to 24 versus things that maybe are more 3 to 5 years out.
The trend I see is really, really cool. IT is getting out of the office finally. It's no longer like this big separation. IT is in one tower and other people that make the money on the other tower. For example, in the auto repair industry, what they're doing is they have glasses that are recording audio and sound. So when the technician is diagnosing a car, they're looking through and they're talking, and it's taking pictures of everything, but they're talking to an AI. So they're saying, order this part, order this part, order this. And the AI in the background is looking up the best price, the availability, the shipping, the dates, and figuring out, making decisions on that and getting the order together and putting all the pictures in the order so the customer will see it too. What this does, you might say, like, well, yeah, but a technician's got to do that anyway. That is true. But what usually happens is after that, the technician has to go and call and price all that out and see what's available, wait on hold. So they're saving a half an hour, an hour per car. So a dealership that runs hundreds of cars through a day, the AI is doing that for them, probably a better job. The customer says, wow, that's really comprehensive, because they're getting a report like they've never gotten a report before that's written by AI, and they're getting it a lot quicker. So again, seeing IT jump out of the office, so to speak, and get into the workplace is exciting, and we're going to see a lot more of that.
One final question, and then Ryan, if once you answer, I know you have a 3 p.m. call, so feel free to pop out after you answer this. The hot topic is, we've all seen on LinkedIn the job reports every 5 minutes, probably while we've been in this session. Some company has done something in the vein of, I'm cutting 5,000 jobs in the name of AI because I'm doing this, or so to speak. What's your stance on that? How can we prepare ourselves for an industry that is, in the tech industry, shifting a bit?
So yeah, the whole jobs thing. Well, I'll say, come to the data center because someone has to babysit the robots. So yeah, honestly, we've been through this way before. We've been through, with the mainframe going to PC, cloud, all this. It's like, everyone's like, oh no, the sky's falling, we're going to lose all our jobs. No, I've seen it, and I've been in industry 20 years now. Basically, the people who, unfortunately, there is a point where those skills do become depreciated. But at the end of the day, you retool, you redeploy, you keep going. So I know now, obviously, the big reports from like that, that's again the big players in the industry where we see a lot of that. But I'll say those of us who are not in the big players, status quo. We keep, again, if you do become a little more obsolete, you retool, you retrain, you keep going. That's just the name of the game. And that's how it is in IT. Y'all came into IT because you wanted to. You love learning, you love technology, you want to continue to grow. That's just what we do. We're lifelong learners. Personally, right now I'm going for another certification. I don't have to, but I'm learning a whole bunch of things with it. I'm going for my they call it RTPM, our Registered Telecommunications Project Manager, because that's what I do. I do a lot of that. But it's just, again, I'm sure everyone in this room, you're all lifelong learners. Keep learning, keep growing, and you'll be fine. That's my opinion on it.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, the thing that hit the news, a couple of weeks ago was Amazon cutting 14,000 jobs, and they're white collar jobs. These weren't distribution center jobs. When you dig past the headline on it, the statement of AI is replacing these jobs, it wasn't like they implemented AI and all these people are hanging around with nothing to do because AI took over. What they're doing is, it's post-COVID. They'd ramped up for a certain kind of business model during the COVID period, and now economics are changing, and they're freeing up resources so that as new workflow models come into place, they can hire for what they need. But like the idea that right now AI is taking people's jobs, I've seen no real evidence of it. The Amazon one is the closest thing to it, and in fact, mostly what I've seen in the last year is a desire for AI literacy in people, because what you do have is organizations where you might have managers going, I want to bring AI in. We're not quite sure how to do it, but if we hire that person here who's already been doing their workflow with AI, I've got to ramp up right away, and I can both learn as an organization and improve efficiency. So I think that's more what it's going to look like for the next stretch. Being smart and being skilled is not ever going to put you on the streets. So, hey, Tony.
Absolutely agree with what Dr. Bowman is saying, that being prepared yourself through education is really your best bet. And those who don't prepare, or who have like maybe an anti-AI attitude, are not going to go very far in this economy, because the investors and the CEOs, it's already making these part of your plan. How do you use AI in your yearly review? You have to put in there how you use AI in your job. And if you put like, I don't like AI, I don't use it at all and stuff, you're probably not going to be at the company, because they're promising their investors that this company is on board with technology to be very efficient and to compete, because they have to compete with other companies and government entities. They have to be there for compliance. But AI, to prepare for it, you want to be as educated, because your job will be changing. And what is it changing to? Well, it's changing from a pure technical job to a job of technical responsibility, because you might be working with less humans in your immediate department, but you're going to be managing AIs. And to manage those AIs, they're going to be managing a lot more than what the humans used to be doing in those departments. And so you have a lot of responsibility, and they're not going to put people in those roles who don't have the skills to do that, because that could make or break the company. So the more skills that you get, the better you're going to have as far as your life is going to be. It's going to be amazing opportunities for those that are skilled in AI.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Ryan had to head off when we were scheduling this. He was like, I actually have a call with a data center at 3 p.m. I'm like, well, that's perfect. We'll get you set for that. But thank you so much, Provost Bowman, Professor Hinton, for our IT and AI Respect panel. Let's give him a round of applause. Very good. Now we'll introduce our last panel of the day. We have our Community Respect panel. So I'll call for Dapsuri Valenzuela, our Senior Professor of Curriculum Integrity. I'll call for Lisa Howes, Program Director and Program Manager for the City of Tempe Economic Development Council. And then I'll also call for Craig Bellinger, our General Education Regent. Let's give them some claps, folks. Cool, you two to share that one. Okay.
Always bring the jacket.
Got too hot.
Is that your phone? Okay. All right. I have my own little tiny microphone. Welcome, everybody. It's a privilege to close this today. I know we've got some networking and other stuff to do later today, but I really want to thank everybody. I want to thank the sponsors and the hosts. Thank our supporters and you, our guests, for the inaugural Tech Respect Summit. Robert, may we have many more of these. Also, obviously, the Director of Community Initiatives, Robert Walker, UAT, and our distinguished panelists, Lisa Haas, Program Manager, City of Tempe Economic Development, and Professor Dapsuri Valenzuela, Curriculum Integrity Senior Professor. So welcome, both of you. So I'd like to begin this with a simple proposition. It's notable that the focus for our panel this afternoon is on the idea of community. We have many words that sound similar or have similar functions, constituents, audience, network, but those words often connote the transactional or self-interested. Community is warm and human. Even in the global digital world, community means family, people, neighborhoods, schools, businesses, and places and positions of care. As technologists, it is in our best interest to serve the community well, because that is where we work and build and live. So with that said, we have two community builders here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. We'll begin with Lisa on this question. When you think about community in technology, what moment or experience comes to mind that shaped you and brings you to this panel? So basically, tell us your background in community building.
Great. Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. This is a great forum. I am a geek in sheep's clothing because I really love all this stuff, but I'm an economic development person. So I'm a civil servant and have been for about 15 years in economic development. And what my role is in business retention, business attraction, keeping them here, building them, helping them to increase their workforce. I also work in marketing, which is, I know, someone else's passion. And I also work in real estate, so a lot of the development pieces that you see around the town. So it's a huge mix of that. And when I think about a defining moment of what brings you to tech, I have to claim I'm Gen X, so I know there's all these different generations, but for me, I grew up with zero tech, zero. So as we go through and we get older, the things that, the Commodore 64, I'm like, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
What is a floppy disk? Oh my God, right? And you're learning all these different things as they go. But there was one moment and I'm going to date this really far back, but yeah, grade 5. And my teacher said, by the year 2000, we're going to be in flying cars. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Flying cars. I can't believe it. And you're watching the Jetsons and you're watching all this stuff. So you're watching and waiting for this tech. And then all of a sudden it's starting to come. You have remote control. You have microwave. You have now, what is this internet thing? What is Google? And all this stuff is coming as you're growing up along with it. So what drives me here today is how do we get that into the hands of everyone? And we've heard from ethics and so forth today of how we do that. But that's what drives me is what's next, what's the new technology, and how do we get everybody to come along?
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I think one of the pivotal moments that made me realize that I didn't have to choose between academia and industry was in high school. and I'm in the yearbook club, and we are setting the spread on graph paper by hand, revealing photographs, cutting out copy, and I'm thinking to myself, there's got to be a better way. And I look over my shoulder and I see one of my classmates creating a digital art with a pen tool and Adobe Illustrator. And mind you, this is decades ago. And I realized that with the touch of a button, you can make changes. But I also realized the beauty of doing things by hand and having a craft and having a trade. And so I realized that I wanted to pursue both. And so I've dedicated my life to academia and serving as a educator, but also working with industry, primarily with startups, because I see a lot of potential here in the Valley with businesses, with organizations, with universities that come together to collaborate and making sure that there's opportunities for those that are very, very talented, but perhaps do not have the tools for it. So that's what I've decided to do with my career, is never compromise that I had to pick one over the other, because it's a win-win scenario. When you think that there's losers and there's winners, then there's obviously going to be one of the each. But when you look at it as how can we cultivate an environment where everybody wins, and if you see that through your resources, your infrastructure, your capital, your connections, you can create opportunities for where everyone wins, then that means your neighbors, your families, your colleagues, everyone is rooting for the same thing. And being almost a native of Arizona, I've been here since I was 3, we're all rooting for the same thing. We're all rooting to amplify the state of Arizona. The 5th largest city is Phoenix in the nation. And if a lot of people don't realize is back in 2003, there was a legislative regulation that Arizonians live by the golden rule. And it's actually written in our state legislature that you do unto others the way that you want to be treated. And we were one of the first in the country to abide by that rule. So I believe it starts in the home, it gravitates towards your work environments and all of the environments that you put yourself in.
Okay, thank you both. I'd like to follow up here a little bit, because you've established your credentials both within technology and community building. When did these things come together? I mean, we are all of the same vintage of Gen X, right? So, and Lisa, you made a really good point about how that is not necessarily a natural fit, right? We didn't necessarily see that coming. Today, we call them the digital natives, the younger generations, Gen Zs and millennials. That's a given, right? Community is digital. So when did that picture come together for you, where, like, to the point where you actually saw some opportunities for yourself in there?
I don't know if this is leading to your next one, but when working with small business, one of the things that I do is I ask what their pain points are. I ask what their challenges are, not just from a city perspective, but in their own environment. What are they working towards? And used to be, way back when, was, I need help with sales, I need help with marketing, I need help with getting out there and making connections and network. And that story has now changed. It's like I'm falling behind because I don't have time to work with technology or understand AI or help me with my cybersecurity, or I've been ransomed and I don't know what to do next. So it was really looking at bridging what I do and connecting them with the experts that can help businesses on the questions they ask me every day.
One of the things that I have been very privileged to be part of is in academic institutions, we're always reaching out to organizations, both small and large, so that way we can create opportunities that it creates a win-win scenario for both the student to gain experience that is much needed on their resumes, and also for nascent companies, particularly startups, that don't really have the capital to pay employees, but what they're doing is they're offering those work experiences that are so important. And when organizations are willing to take on younger, less experienced, but very hungry and intelligent employees, then they can do it through internships, through apprenticeships, through other shadow volunteer experiences. And oftentimes companies feel that they need to have a lot of capital to do that. But if you have to keep the lights on, you might as well welcome more people in. And so if you use your infrastructure, your connections, your hardware, your free Wi-Fi to ensure that other organizations that are much smaller and nascent than you are, then that presents new opportunities for them as well.
Thank you. So the next question here, we'll begin with Dabzuri, is what does good collaboration look like between universities, industries, et cetera? So sketch that out for us. What have you seen? What does success look like?
I'm a closet competitor, and so I love winning, but I also truly, wholeheartedly believe that everyone's an ally. And when you present yourself as a servant, meaning I am here to serve, I am here to help you in any way that I can, then you openly reveal that you are willing to assist others. And everyone has value. And when you start with that perspective, then others can literally see that you're trying to do within your power, within your network, within your resources to create those opportunities. So if you have those moments where you can introduce industry, government policy, community organizations that come together, town hall meetings, even your neighborhood gathering. All of those are moments to share experiences and opinions and perspectives. So that way, we're all restating our alignment. What are we here for? We're here to make sure that our students are educated so that way they can stay within the state, work to grow organizations that can propel us to ensure that we're competing on a national and global level. And mind you that we're very strategically placed near very large cities like Los Angeles and also globally with other countries like Mexico and Canada. And so that presents a really strategic advantage for other cities that are not located within parameters where they can not only enjoy a quality of life, but also the quality of their businesses growing. Because that's one thing is we've been the best kept secret for many years and now the secret's out. But again, it's also this welcoming, untangible notion that people in the state of Arizona are willing to welcome others. And it's always gratifying when I go to networking events and I hear that people have moved here just recently 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and they realize how welcoming the citizens are of the state of Arizona. So I think that's something to be incredibly proud of.
Absolutely. Lisa, same question. What have you seen? What does good collaboration look like between tech and industries and universities and, in your case, municipalities?
Yeah, the government. Well, thank you. And I'm a recent transplant from Toronto, so I'm a new one here, and I have experience. One of the things that we used to say in my family that's here is that the service, no matter where you go, is super friendly. Like, man, it must be the sun because it is just amazing friendly. And so yes, kudos. We've noticed. When in working with collaboration, one of the things that I look for, what are the end results? What actions are being taken? How do you get people moving in the right direction, not just talking about it? And just as an example, in the cybersecurity world, where it started for me was a number of years ago. I held it almost like a talk like this, where we had a panel, but it was called Stuff Happens. So for businesses, so it was really we had an insurance agent, we had a restoration company that was sitting on the panel, we had a hotel that had a flood and talk about some of the stuff that happens out of their control. But we also had a company there that was one of the first that you've heard of that were ransomed. And when he got up and he was talking about the devastation to a small business when you have a ransom attack, a light bulb clicked with the entire audience, and like, we need to know more about that. So that became a lot of conversation between university, college, the government on how do we bridge that and bring people together to learn more about this. But how do you do it in a fun way? And I'm looking over here at my students, because how do you do this in a cybersecurity fun way? You gamify it. So what we brought together then was probably, I like to say it's the first in North America, but it was for sure the first in Canada, was the Cybersecurity Escape Room and Training Center. And we built 3 rooms. The first one was an office environment where you would come in and your office was hacked. You had 10 minutes to shut it down, and they had the big anonymous face and the grueling, the clock ticking down. And we had to shut that down. And as soon as you finish that one, you go into the second room. So now you're at home, you're relaxed, you're like, oh, thank you. I shut this one down. But then your Alexa has been hacked and all of your IoT infrastructure has been taken over by hackers in your own home. So how do you shut that down? The next room then was from the hacker's view. So you go into the hacker's room and now you actually see some of the tools and techniques that the black hats are out there doing and attacking your home. So we use the camera, we use the different things to look into the other rooms. So it was a unique way to bringing people through, but it had to be a collaboration between the government, the universities, and our businesses and industry to start bringing and training those people through. So at the end of the day, we ended up holding the Global Cyber Olympics as a result of that, which was so much fun. But for university, and since we're in a university environment, bringing in white hat hackers from across the globe is very scary for a university because you don't want them all on your own network. So you have to build your own separate network for that kind of competition. But it was a lot of fun.
Brag a little. I want to hear about some of these. I want to hear more.
One of the things that I found truly remarkable is at a tech company that I was working at, the CEO believed firmly that we have two hands, one is for receiving and one is for giving. And we created a STEAM academy for kids as young as 8 to 18 because we realized that we didn't have sufficient talent for the specific technologies that we were creating at the time. And it was primarily like AR and VR. And so we thought, okay, why don't we create summer camps for the summers when the kids are out, after school programs, and also specials within K through 12. So that way we can introduce these technologies to kids that otherwise wouldn't have exposure to them. We go to K to 12 elementary schools and essentially propose that we were willing to bring in the talent, the equipment, the curriculum, so that way we can take over their after school specials. And through certain security measures to ensure that the children are safeguarded, we were able to introduce students to robotics and engineering and a lot of these different STEM programs. And that allowed us to not only build relationships with K through 12, but more importantly, that these kids, as they transition to high school, that we can provide internship opportunities. By the time they moved over to college, we were hiring them part-time. By the time they graduated college, they were full-time employees. And mind you, they started with us as young as 8. And so if companies are willing to stay here in the Valley, then they can deploy a lot of their resources because they already have them. And if you truly believe that you're a servant, those volunteer hours are not requirements of an organization, but rather just you being a good servant leader, being willing to provide your intelligence, your expertise, and your training, so that way your neighborhood kids can have opportunities. And so that's been one of the experiences that I've been most proud of, because if you take, you give, and it's all reciprocal, you still benefit from it either way.
Thank you both. How do you deal with communities? I mean, we're all tech on, adjacent at least. Most of you guys are technologists, practitioners. So I think it's pretty easy for us to get our heads around this, right? We serve the community. How do you train the community to be receptive to that kind of collaboration? It seems that there might be some issues of not truly understanding what can be done, maybe what their needs are, et cetera. So how do you actually deal with communities and teach them to be open for that?
Teaching the municipalities, or?
Well, the communities, however you want to look at it, definitely the cities can be the community, but also they can be the practitioners, people that are putting that out there. So how do you actually train members of the general public to be open to collaboration like this? And I'm not talking about the tech literate, right? I'm talking about, everybody else, the ones that may need to be told that this is actually really important for you.
So it's a really good question, and that's probably marketing 101, is knowing how to get the message out to the right people, because it's challenging. It really is. A lot of people won't understand what they don't know, or what they don't know what's coming. I heard it on one of the panels today, actually, a couple of them, and talking about educating, and getting the message out there. One of the best ways to do that is through the K to 12 system, and through the teachers, and being in the classrooms and going and talking at that level, because they're bringing that information home and they're starting to talk about it at home. Other areas that I've worked through to start getting the word out is through our library system, and in putting things out either through library or hosting different events for businesses that come through, or having the libraries come to business events. They'll set up the table, they'll do whatever as far as all of their digital tools, their hard copy books, for those of us that still pick up the hard copies. But that's it's really finding unique ways to get out and start spreading the information.
One of the ways that had been proven helpful for us is when technology companies want to grow and they realize that they need access to the talent, is to introduce themselves to those organizations, whether they're K-12 or universities, so that way they can provide professional development for their faculty members. If they have to fulfill certain hours for training, if your technology company is already trained in a specific software application, then you can just go into that organization, provide the free training, and then in turn, those schools will be much more open to receiving you upon, let's say, the growth of your company. And when you align yourself with marketing messages, whether I still believe in print, because you still have to realize that some of the parents that are maybe not as digitally savvy, they want to sit and study a topic that they know nothing about. And mind you, many of them are very receptive to learning about them on smartphone devices and on their computers. But when you're dealing sometimes with an older generation, consider that the largest generation right now, which are the baby boomers, are retiring about 1,000 per day. When they want to study something, you have to meet them halfway and provide options for them. It's not always the best solution to have them to go to a website and log in to access a document. How much easier is it for them to slip it into a folder with your kids' backpack, and then they go through the kids' backpack anyway, and then they learn about this topic? And that's what we found beneficial is if you keep reintroducing the topic and learning it in stages, by the time you introduce the program, they're like, oh yes, I read about it, I studied it, they gave me time to understand it. So that way when the opportunity does arise, they're much more likely to participate.
All right, we're going to get a little utopian here, so hold on to your hats. So describe your ideal technology community. Now, there's no parameters here. I'm just curious, what is in your minds as far as ideal look like?
I truly believe that everything starts from a center point. And you can't give if you don't feel worthy. And so if all of us pay attention to our needs and don't wait until catastrophe happens, then you're much more likely to enjoy and feel and think of these like innovative ideas. So that way you can contribute. So I do believe a lot of it starts at the home. How do you step out of your home? You know, are you your best version of yourself? And if you take care of yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, you're much more willing to give because you have and feel that abundance. And then when you go out into your community, you're much more likely to meet and attract others that also want to build and contribute and, you know, amplify the state. So I think to build digitally, ethically, and morally good citizens starts in the home. You know, I still believe in Sunday dinners. I still believe that you should connect with your family. I have 2 teenage children. We turn off the TV after we've given them their veg out time, but we connect and we say, okay, what are your wins this week? What are your lows? Is anything bothering you? Is anything, you know, happening in your life that we can help with? And just share, you know, experiences with others. And we do that with no technology involved. And so while I appreciate and love technology, I do believe there's a time and a place. And I always remind my children that you are in control of the technology. The technology doesn't control you. And with the advancements of AI and everything else, if you look at it just like as a co-creator, much like a calculator, a computer, I mean, I benefited from those in the last 4 decades of seeing technology advance. And so I can't even imagine doing the math by hand, whereas a calculator can easily do it for me. But again, I'm in control of where I put my focus and my time. So I think that that's been something very beneficial, is making sure that you give your immediate circle the focus and the energy and the love that they need. So that way, when you get out into the world, you don't leave your house in shambles, and give your work environment everything that it needs. Is that it's a balance. And I know that that's a very controversial word, balance, because in my mind, it's more management. If I can't give too much in this area at this moment, I'll make sure to come back to it and refocus on it once I'm given the time.
I should have gone first because that was a way better answer than I would ever think of. From a municipality or my context, one of the things in Utopian is really taking building programs that people need to bring them together. One of the areas that I did was in bringing these groups together was AI for all. And this was years ago before we really started getting into AI. And it was for business, for seniors, and for youth. And youth, of course, were light years ahead of everybody else. And they already knew the technology and how to apply. But it was really interesting to see anyone from 8, 9, 10 years old, 12 years old working with this. For the seniors, it was really eye-opening for bringing in people that could teach them at their speed, at their level, at their volume, and be able to say, here's what it means, here's what AI means. And I'm going to steal this from Ali Hergy from Durham College. way back in the day on AI. But he said, AI is, if it's the rocket, your data is the fuel. And what is that data? Where are they getting the data? And explaining that to seniors that haven't been into that, it was eye-opening. It was like anytime you click a like, anytime you put your information in, anytime you vote with your phone is a data point. So be careful where you vote. And seniors understand the voting area. So when they say, okay, this is what I like, that's going to become something later that could come back to me. So where do I put that? So it was really eye-opening for that. For the business side, it was very similar, but it was, how do you protect the data that you're collecting from your customers, and how do you build that? But that whole collective in the community, and where I see the utopian question is building on that, and how do you continue to raise the awareness and bring all groups along in the technology.
Thank you both. All right, final question, then we'll open up the floor. 10 years from now, how will we know we built a strong technology community in Arizona? What will be different for students, workers, and families? What will be the same?
I want to have flying cars. So let's hope that that's the future, waiting for that, so we're not in traffic. And by the way, the Phoenix traffic, if anyone complains about it, you need to come to Toronto and you will love Phoenix traffic. So what it really looks like for me is again bringing people along at their pace, and understanding where technology is going to take them in the future. And when we go back to maybe your first question too, was, what was that moment? And it's always, what is next? What's the next Facebook look like? Where Twitter's already going one way, and it's already changed a few times. Well, what is next that's going to bring communities together? How are they going to communicate? How are they going to share ideas? And really, where is that going? I think that's probably my big question.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw it back.
One of the things that I'm incredibly proud that UAT has been able to do with the support of Dr. Bowman and our entire leadership team is providing summer camps for K through 12 kids. And we provide summer camps and introduce them to technologies that they're already interested in, and also expose them to ones that they probably hadn't thought of. And my hope would be that 10 years into the future, these young children grow up to be adults that open up businesses here in the Valley. That would be the greatest reward, because if we give with what we have, they build and can continue giving moving forward.
Thank you both. All right, well, thank you. We are going to open up the floor for what Robert has deemed the lightning talk, but also we can do Q&A here as well for our panelists. So we'll start there. If there are any questions on anything that we've talked about so far this afternoon. You explained so well that we do not have follow-up questions, so thank you. Now, the idea behind the lightning talks is to give the audience and the community support a chance to come up here, and this is your venue to speak to the rest of us. Any message you'd like us to know, anything you'd like to tell us about your endeavors, etc. So the floor is open for a couple minutes. If you'd like to come up, I will step aside and give you the podium. Or we could have a cookie. We are, after all, respecting snacks today.
Community cookies.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. This is a real privilege, and thank you to Lisa and Dapsuri.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right. Now, there will be some closing remarks from Robert in just a little bit, so if we could stay for that. And then, of course, between 4 and 5 is a networking mixer sponsored by Four Peaks and Postmates. And I look forward to speaking to more of you guys after.
I can introduce these two.
We are done, and I went ahead and we did an invitation for a lightning talk. Nobody asked on it, so yeah, thank you. I let people know there was a mixer and everything, and so I think we closed out. Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Oh, good to see you.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, I was just about for the AI. I'll just stay with you, as we get to really think, just to have that conversation.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I'll head down. I was going to use the restroom real quick. Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, man. Thanks,
Thank you all for joining us.